I used to believe that home was unshakable. No matter how small the house, no matter how loud the arguments, it was supposed to be the one place in the world where you were safe. I was 16 when I learned how wrong I was. The house on Maple Drive had always been my whole world. It was a modest single story with faded blue shutters and a porch that creaked in the wind. I knew every sound it made. How the pipes rattled when someone ran hot water. How the kitchen floor had a soft groan under the third tile from the fridge. How the old screen door slammed with a sharp snap in summer humidity. Inside, the air always carried a faint mix of coffee, laundry detergent, and the baby lotion my mom had started using for the twins. That smell had once meant family to me. By the end of that year, it would smell like betrayal. My mother, Elaine, had me when she was 20. She used to tell me I was her first miracle, the reason she kept going when my biological father vanished, before I could form a memory of him. My earliest memories are all of just the two of us. Saturday mornings, she'd tie my hair in messy braids and take me to the park with a secondhand soccer ball. On rainy days, we'd sit by the living room window, tracing raindrops on the glass and making up stories about where they were racing to. At night, she'd tuck me in with old storybooks, sometimes pausing to yawn mid-sentence because she was so tired from school and work. I never doubted she loved me, or maybe I just needed to believe it. Things started changing when Leonard came into the picture. He wasn't cruel. He was worse than cruel. He was indifferent. Leonard treated me like a piece of furniture that came with the house. When they married, I told myself it wouldn't change anything. But dinners became quieter. Conversations shifted and laughter. Ours started disappearing from the walls. I still tried. God, I tried so hard. I set the table. I brought home good grades. I learned to cook 1 or 2 meals just to hear, "Thank you." Then came the twins. At first, I was excited. I imagined myself as the cool older sister, teaching them to walk, to talk, to draw crook stick figures like I used to with Mom. I babysat for neighbors to practice. I even saved up to buy 2 tiny matching teddy bears with my first tips from the coffee shop. But the night they came home from the hospital, I disappeared from my mother's eyes. She didn't mean to. I want to believe that, but love can turn into tunnel vision. It was bottles, diapers, late-night crying, and somewhere in that blur, she stopped seeing me. No more weekend parks. No more. "How was your day, Claire?" At the dinner table. I started lingering in the hallway at night, listening to her coo to the babies, waiting for some sign that I still existed. It never came. The final break came a few weeks after my 16th birthday. I had just finished wiping down the counters at the coffee shop where I worked weekends. My sneakers were damp from melted snow, and my fingertips smelled faintly of espresso. When I got home, Leonard was sitting on the couch with that tight-lipped expression he used when delivering bad news like it was business. Mom sat beside him, silent, her hands folded. "Claire," Leonard started, "we need to have a serious talk." I felt it before he said it. Some deep, primal part of me already knew. He talked about money. About how things were tight with the twins. About how I was old enough to start figuring things out for myself. He listed bills and expenses like I was a math problem he needed to solve. Then Mom looked at me and said the words that would haunt me for years. "They deserve more than we can give you. Not we'll figure it out. Not we'll get through this together. Just a verdict you are less important than them." I didn't argue. What was there to say? That I had spent years trying to earn a spot in my own family. That I had memorized every shift in her face, hoping for some flicker of the mother who used to braid my hair and trace raindrops with me. I went to my room, packed the duffel bag that held my whole world, 2 pairs of jeans, a handful of T-shirts, my sketchbook and the pen I used to write letters I never sent. When I stepped onto the porch, the cold air slapped my face, and the street lamps flickered in the distance like they were the only witnesses to my exile. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just walked. The 2-mile stretch to my grandparents' farmhouse felt endless. Gravel crunched under my sneakers. My breath came in clouds. Every step was a goodbye I didn't get to say. When I finally reached the familiar white mailbox, light spilled from the kitchen window. My grandmother opened the door before I could knock. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh, Claire." And then I was in her arms, sobbing into the scent of cinnamon and laundry detergent. My grandfather's footsteps thundered behind her. He took one look at me, one look at my bag, and his jaw clenched in a way I'd never seen. "She really did it?" he asked. I nodded. He muttered something I'd never heard him say about his own daughter and disappeared into the kitchen, banging drawers. Grandma just held me tighter. "You'll stay here," she said softly but firmly. "You're safe now." That night, I learned that safety isn't always where you're born. It's where you're welcomed. The girl who left that house on Maple Drive wasn't the same one who had traced raindrops on windows with her mother. She had been replaced, erased, and left to rebuild herself in the cold. The attic became my kingdom. It wasn't pretty. The ceiling sloped so low that I had to duck near the window. In winter, frost crept along the corners of the glass like white veins. In summer, the heat rose from the roof and clung to the air, turning the space into a furnace. But it was mine. I pushed an old quilt onto the floor, stacked my duffel bag like a pillow, and stared at the wooden beams overhead. Dust drifted through the air, catching in the light of a single bare bulb. Somewhere below, my grandmother hummed while cooking, and the smell of cinnamon and apples reached me through the cracks in the floorboards. I hadn't felt safe in months, maybe years. That night, I slept with the window cracked, just enough to hear the wind in the trees. It was the first time I'd closed my eyes without the weight of someone else's rejection pressing down on me. The next morning, reality came knocking. Literally. My grandfather tapped on the attic stairs. "Breakfast," he said, voice rough from years of farm work. "And then we'll talk about work for you." Work. The word settled heavy in my chest. By noon, I had my first job at Willow Creek Coffee, a small shop on Main Street with a squeaky front door and a bell that jingled too loud. The owner, Mrs. Porter, was a short, round woman with gray curls and a permanent coffee stain on her apron. She looked me over like she could see the exhaustion clinging to my bones. "You ever worked a register?" she asked. I shook my head. "Well, you can learn. Start with cleaning tables and restocking napkins. We'll go from there." The first shift nearly broke me. The smell of espresso and sugar clung to everything, my hair, my skin, even my socks. I spilled a latte, got yelled at by a customer who claimed his muffin was too dry, and cut my finger on a stubborn syrup pump. By the time I biked home, my hands were sticky, my back ached, and I could barely keep my eyes open. I dragged myself up to the attic, collapsed on the quilt, and stared at the ceiling until the spinning in my head slowed. My stomach growled. I had skipped lunch to save a few dollars. I thought about my mother. Was she tucking the twins into bed right now, laughing with Leonard in that warm kitchen? Did she even notice my absence anymore? Tears welled in my eyes, but I forced them back. Crying wouldn't change a thing. Days bled into weeks. My routine became clockwork: wake up at dawn to help Grandpa feed the chickens, bike to school, then to the coffee shop, pedal home after dark, legs burning, collapse in the attic with my tip money hidden under a loose floorboard. Every dollar was a promise to myself I will survive. One night, I sat at the attic window, notebook open on my knees, and wrote a list of everything I wanted: my own apartment, a real bed, a life where no one could throw me away again. The list was short, but it was mine. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching the lights of Willow Creek twinkle in the distance. In that quiet, lonely space, I realized something. I was scared, yes, but I was also free. Safety doesn't always feel warm. Sometimes it's just a cold attic, aching muscles, and the knowledge that no one can hurt you tonight. In the silence of that space, I started to hear my own voice for the first time, and it whispered a promise: keep going. Working at Willow Creek Coffee quickly became more than just a job. It became my classroom in how the world really worked. I learned fast that customers could be cruel in ways that stayed with you long after the shift ended. It was a Tuesday morning, and the shop was busy. Commuters shuffled in half asleep, their eyes glued to phones, muttering orders without ever looking up. A man in a navy suit, polished shoes, gold watch, snapped his fingers at me from across the counter. "This is cold," he barked, shoving his lat toward me. I froze. I had just pulled the shot seconds ago. The cup was still steaming in my hand. "I can remake it for you," I said quietly. "Do it. And hurry. I'm late because of you people already." You people. The words clung to me like spilled syrup. I remade his drink with shaking hands, swallowing the apology that wasn't mine to give. He didn't say thank you. He didn't even glance at me when he left. That night, lying on the attic floor, the scene replayed in my head. I realized something sharp and painful. When you're on the bottom, the world doesn't always see you as human. Weeks later, I closed the shop alone for the first time. It was pouring outside, one of those early spring storms that seemed to come out of nowhere. My bike was chained to the lamppost, its frame glistening with rain. When I unlocked it, the back tire was flat. I checked my pockets. No bus fare. So I walked. The rain soaked through my hoodie in seconds, plastering my hair to my face. My sneakers squished with every step, and cold water ran down my spine like icy fingers. By the time I reached the old bridge on Maple Creek Road, my teeth were chattering. Headlights approached from behind. I froze, the car slowed, then pulled to the shoulder. A window rolled down and a familiar voice called, "Claire." "Honey, is that you?" It was Mrs. Thompson, my school librarian. She leaned across the passenger seat, her face creased with concern. "What on earth are you doing out here in this weather?" "Walking home," I muttered, embarrassed. She didn't ask any more questions. She just unlocked the door. "Get in. No one should be out in this storm." Warm air and the soft smell of cocoa enveloped me. She handed me a thermos from her cup holder. "It's not much," she said softly, "but it's warm." I crowded it in my hands like it was the most precious thing in the world. That short drive home was silent, but it healed something small and raw in me. When she dropped me off, she said, "You're tougher than you think, Claire. But even tough girls deserve a little help sometimes." I went to sleep that night in the attic, damp but smiling, the taste of cocoa still on my tongue. Once I started noticing kindness, I couldn't stop. Mr. Nguyen, the corner store owner, who slipped me a steamed bun one night and said, "No pay." With a small nod, Angela, the nurse who came for coffee at 6 a.m., leaving a paper bag with my name on it, a sandwich and a granola bar. The bus driver who let me ride for free when he saw me digging for coins in the rain. They weren't family. They weren't obligated. But they chose to see me. And those small choices stitched me back together in ways my mother never would. The world can be sharp and cold, but it isn't empty. Every small act of kindness, every free bun, every warm ride, every quiet smile, became a thread holding me together. I began to realize that I didn't need the family who abandoned me to feel human. I just needed the courage to keep walking in the rain. The attic had a way of amplifying silence. On winter nights, I could hear the faint whistle of wind through the old window frame, the creak of wood as the house settled, and the slow, steady tick of the clock in my grandparents' kitchen below. That night, I sat cross-legged on the quilt, my phone screen glowing in the dark like a tiny, merciless spotlight. I had typed and deleted the same message to my mother 10 times. "Hi, Mom. I got into Eastbridge University. I was wondering if you could help me with financial forms, or maybe co-sign a loan." I stared at the words. My thumb hovered over send. I told myself it was practical. It wasn't begging for love, just asking for help. But deep down, I knew that was a lie. Some fragile part of me still hoped she'd read it and remember that I was her daughter. I hit send. Then I waited. The attic felt colder with every passing hour. I tried to distract myself with homework, with doodles in my notebook, with staring at the frost forming along the window pane. My stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and foolish hope. When my phone buzzed at 12:37 a.m., I snatched it up so fast I almost dropped it. One line: "We're saving for the twins' future. We can't help. Sorry." I read it again and again, as if some hidden meaning might reveal itself between the words. No congratulations. No, I'm proud of you. Just a clean, clinical rejection. The air seemed to leave the attic. I sank back against the wall, the phone slipping from my hands onto the quilt. It wasn't about the money. It was the final confirmation of what I had known for years. I was no longer a part of her life. I didn't cry right away. I sat there, staring at the wooden beams overhead, listening to the sound of the wind outside. My chest felt like it had a hole in it, and in that hole, something unexpected began to grow. Not despair, not anger, but clarity. I whispered into the empty room, "She's not coming back for me." Saying it out loud made it real, and oddly, it set me free. From that night on, I stopped waiting. I deleted her number. I stopped checking my phone during breaks at the coffee shop. I stopped imagining that one day she'd show up at my graduation or leave a card under my pillow. Instead, I poured everything into building a life of my own. I spent nights researching scholarships, typing essays until my fingers cramped. I scoured community bulletin boards for freelance gigs tutoring kids, cleaning basements, coding basic websites for local businesses. Every dollar I earned, every application I submitted, felt like a brick in the wall between me and the girl who used to beg to be loved. Weeks later, a letter arrived. The envelope was cream-colored, the logo of Eastbridge University embossed in shiny navy ink. My hands shook as I tore it open on the front porch, my breath clouding in the icy air. "Congratulations, Claire Monroe." I didn't even read the rest at first. I just stood there, eyes stinging, holding the paper like it was the first proof I had that I was going to be okay. Upstairs in the attic that night, I pinned the letter to the slanted wall above my bed. It was my North Star, not my mother, not her approval, just me and the future I was building from nothing. Letting go of someone you love isn't a single moment. It's a quiet decision that echoes for the rest of your life. That night, I stopped chasing the woman who gave me life but wouldn't fight for me. And in that empty space she left behind, I found something better: the courage to fight for myself. The first day at Eastbridge University should have been exciting. For most kids, it was the start of freedom: decorated dorm rooms, new friends, late night pizza runs, and laughter spilling down hallways. For me, it felt like stepping onto a battlefield I hadn't been trained for. I moved into a tiny, drafty dorm room with paint peeling around the window frame. My roommate was a bubbly girl named Sophie who talked about weekend trips, sorority rush, and her mom sending weekly care packages. I smiled and nodded, pretending to belong, but when she opened a box full of cookies and handwritten notes, something inside me cracked. No one was sending me cookies. No one was checking if I was eating. If I disappeared tomorrow, my mother probably wouldn't even know. I cried that first night in the communal bathroom, muffling the sound under the shower. The water was warm, but my chest felt hollow. Within the first month, I had 3 jobs. Library aide shelving books, pushing squeaky carts up and down quiet aisles. Night janitor mopping the student center after midnight, the smell of bleach clinging to my clothes. Pizza delivery sprinting across campus dorms, my sneakers squeaking on tile floors, while students laughed in their pajamas. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I stole naps in the library, in the janitor's closet, on the bus. The chemistry exam, I nodded off mid-study and woke up drooling on my notes. I scored a 68. I hid in a bathroom stall for 10 minutes, cheeks wet, before forcing myself to class. The rain delivery. One night I ran across campus with 3 large pizzas, the rain soaking through my hoodie. I slipped on the steps of Maple Hall, scraping my knee. No one noticed. The hunger pains my stomach growled so loud during lecture that the guy next to me slid half his granola bar onto my desk without a word. I learned to swallow humiliation like it was part of the meal plan. Around sophomore year, the voice in my head changed. The old voice whispered, "You're unwanted. You're alone. You're nothing without their love." The new voice was quieter, steadier. "They left you. And still, you rise. They forgot you. And still, you work. They erased you. And still, you exist." I started talking to myself in the library stacks, whispering affirmations no one else would ever give me. "You're here. You belong. Keep going." I realized I didn't need my mother's approval anymore. I just needed my own belief. By junior year, I taught myself basic web design and digital marketing. I started freelancing for local shops, staying up until 2 a.m. coding on the library fee. The first time I received a $200 payment for a project, I sat in the dining hall staring at the notification, my hands shaking. It wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that I could build something out of nothing. Out of me. College didn't feel like freedom. It felt like fire. Every sleepless night, every hungry day, every tear swallowed in silence burned away the fragile girl who still wanted to be saved. And in her place, piece by piece, I forged someone new, a woman who could save herself. Graduation day was supposed to be a celebration, but for me, it was a mirror held up to my life. Students in caps and gowns clustered in the quad, laughing, taking pictures with whole families wrapped around them like warm scarves. Moms held bouquets, dads wiped proud tears. Younger siblings ran across the grass in summer sandals. I scanned the crowd automatically, knowing what I wouldn't find. No mother waving at me from the bleachers. No Leonard with his stiff smile. No twins holding signs with my name in glitter. Instead, in the front row, stood my aunt, the only one who had signed my first student loan, holding a hand-painted sign that said, "Go Claire," with a crooked star on it. When they called my name and I stepped onto that stage, the cheers from other families blurred into a hum. The only sound that mattered was her voice, cutting through the noise. "That's my girl!" I walked across the stage with my diploma, and for the first time in years I felt tall. After graduation, I moved to the city with one suitcase and $500 in savings and a heart full of stubbornness. My first apartment was a studio above a laundromat, with a leaky faucet and a single window that rattled every time the train went by. But it was mine. I bought a used futon from Craigslist, stacked my books in milk crates, and taped my Eastbridge diploma to the wall like it was a window to a better life I was still building. My first job was at a small marketing agency. I wasn't making much, barely enough to cover rent and raiment. But it was honest work in my field, and every day felt like a step away from the girl in the attic. I volunteered for everything: late night projects nobody wanted, client presentations where my hands shook behind the slides, office tasks like fixing printers or cleaning the conference table just to prove I belonged. It was exhausting, but this time the exhaustion felt different. It didn't feel like survival. It felt like momentum. A few months in, I landed my first solo client project, a rebranding campaign for a struggling bakery. I spent nights sketching logos and writing ad copy on sticky notes in my tiny apartment. When the campaign launched, the bakery's sales went up 20%. The owner hugged me, crying, "I didn't think we'd make it another month. You saved us." Walking home that night, I passed my reflection in a shop window and almost didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked different, but because for the first time, I felt different. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was creating, thriving, becoming. There were evenings I'd sit on my rickety fire, escape with a cup of tea, letting the city hum around me. The neon signs from the laundromat below flickered blue and red on my walls. The air smelled like rain and laundry detergent. And in that quiet, I whispered to myself, "You did this, no one else. You." The girl who once walked barefoot off her mother's porch now had a place of her own, a job she had fought for, and a future she was building brick by brick. I didn't need my mother's love anymore. But I didn't know then that my past wasn't finished with me yet. Success doesn't always roar. It often arrives as a whisper in a quiet room you built for yourself. Sitting in that tiny apartment, I realized I didn't just want to survive anymore. I wanted to live, and for the first time I believed I could. The first sign of trouble was the knock. It was early evening. The city was quiet for once, the usual hum of traffic softened by a steady spring rain. I had just made myself a cup of tea and curled up by the single window in my studio apartment, watching droplets chase each other down the glass. 3 sharp knocks shattered the calm. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. No deliveries, no neighbors. Another knock came, louder this time. My chest tightened. For reasons I couldn't explain, an old fear stirred in me, one I hadn't felt since the attic years. I crept to the door and peered through the peephole. Her face. Even through the warped glass, I knew it. My mother. Behind her, slightly out of focus, was Leonard, holding a folder under his arm, his mouth pressed into the same disapproving line I remembered from my teenage years. The teacup trembled in my hand. 10 years of silence. And now this. I unlatched the chain and opened the door, but only a crack. "Claire," my mother said, her voice soft but tight, like she had rehearsed it in the hallway. "Can we come in?" I hesitated for a long moment. A part of me wanted to slam the door. Another part, an old reflex I thought I'd killed, still felt like a child desperate for answers. I stepped aside. Leonard walked in first, scanning my apartment with the cold efficiency of a landlord. His gaze slid over the thrift store futon, the stack of library books on the floor, the kettle on the single-burner stove. "So this is where all that college money went," he muttered. I bit back the urge to snap. "What do you want?" My mother perched on the edge of my futon, smoothing the fabric like she owned it. "The twins are starting college," she began, her tone syrupy, "and things have been tight lately. We thought maybe you could help out." I blinked. "Help out? You haven't spoken to me in a decade." Leonard cut in, voice sharp. "You're single, no kids. Good job, right? Don't act like you can't afford it." "Family helps family," I laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. It was sharp, bitter, and unfamiliar even to me. "Family," I said. "You mean the people who threw me out when I was 16? The ones who chose a clean kitchen and quiet dinners over having a daughter? That family." My mother's face twisted. "Oh, don't start with that. You've been holding a grudge for years. Look at you, you turned out fine." Her words didn't land the way they used to. Years ago, I would have begged, cried, bargained for her love. Now, standing in my own apartment, I felt something new to steal. "You're here because you want money," I said slowly. "Not because you care. Not because you miss me. Just money." Leonard didn't even deny it. "You owe it to the twins. They deserve a chance. They're your siblings." I shook my head. "They are innocent. But they're your responsibility, not mine. You made your choice the night you pushed me out the door." For a moment, the room was silent except for the drip of rain against the window. I realized then that the scared girl from Maple Drive was gone. In her place stood a woman who owed them nothing. Some ghosts don't haunt. They knock on your door wearing the same faces you once loved. But the day you open that door and feel nothing but clarity, you know you've changed. I wasn't the abandoned child anymore. I was the woman they couldn't touch. The silence in my apartment felt like a storm about to break. Leonard was the first to let the thunder out. "You think you're better than us now, don't you?" His voice was sharp, dripping with the condescension I remembered all too well. "A little college degree, a little city apartment. You think that makes you somebody." I leaned against the wall, crossing my arms. "I don't think I'm better. I just know I don't owe you anything." My mother's face hardened. Her voice rose a notch, trembling between anger and desperation. "After everything I did for you, I raised you alone. I sacrificed everything for you. And now, when we need you, you turn your back?" I almost laughed at the word sacrifice. "You threw me away at 16. I said, my voice low but steady. "Your sacrifice ended the night you chose a quiet house over your own daughter." For a split second, I saw something in her eyes, guilt maybe, or the shadow of shame, but Leonard snuffed it out with a snort. "You're ungrateful," he snapped. "If we hadn't pushed you to grow up, you wouldn't even be here." You should be thanking us. That was it. The line that snapped the last thread tethering me to the girl who used to beg for their love. Thank you. My voice shook, but not with fear. With fury I had been holding in for 10 years. You threw me into the cold like trash. You didn't ask if I'd be okay. You didn't care if I survived. And now you want me to thank you. I felt something ignite in my chest, a raw, bright certainty. I built this life in spite of you, not because of you. And I will never give you a single penny. My mother rose from the futon, her face twisted with a mix of rage and disbelief. You're heartless, she spat. I can't believe I raised a daughter like you. I took a slow breath. No, you didn't. Not really. The girl you raised died on that porch 10 years ago. And the woman standing here doesn't need you anymore. The words landed like a slap in the quiet room. For the first time, I felt free even as my voice trembled. Leonard pointed a finger at me. You're going to regret this. Family always comes back around. I stepped forward, hand on the door. Not this time. Get out. They hesitated, but something in my posture, or maybe in my eyes, told them I meant it. When the door shut behind them, the apartment was silent except for the rain outside. But this time, the silence was mine. There are moments in life when you finally understand your own strength. It doesn't roar. It stands quietly, like a tree that has weathered every storm. That night, I realized I didn't just survive my past. I had outgrown it. I thought that shutting the door would be the end. But ghosts don't vanish just because you tell them to. A week later, the pounding started. It was a Saturday evening. The city was quieter than usual, a soft drizzle painting the streetlights in watery halos. I was on my couch with a book in my lap, letting myself enjoy something I hadn't felt in years' peace. Then came the knock, no, the bang. 3 heavy, angry thuds that rattled the door frame. I froze. My heart kicked against my ribs. I already knew. When I peered through the peephole, there they were, my mother and Leonard, soaked from the drizzle. Faces twisted into something feral. Claire, she screamed, her voice slicing through the hallway. You can't ignore us! I didn't open the door. My hand tightened on the knob. Go home, I said through the wood. You're not welcome here. The banging grew louder. You think you can erase your family. Leonard's voice boomed. UOS? I opened the door just enough to step outside, refusing to let them barge in. The drizzle had turned into a steady rain, soaking my hair and hoodie. Across the street, a neighbor's porch light flicked on. Curtains moved in nearby windows. An audience was forming. You're making a scene, I said, keeping my voice even. My mother threw her hands in the air, voice rising to a wail. She's always been a selfish brat! After everything I've done for her. The words echoed down the block. Something inside me snapped. Not with anger, but with clarity. I turned slightly so the neighbors could hear me too. You mean after throwing me out at 16? After pretending I didn't exist for 10 years? That everything? Gasps and murmurs rose from porches. My mother's face went red, but she kept shouting. Leonard stepped forward, finger stabbing the air. You think you're better than us because you got a little job. You'll always be nothing. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up. Leave now, or I call the police. Go ahead, Leonard barked. Call the cops on your own mother. Show everyone what a heartless daughter you are. I hit the dial. 911. What's your emergency? My estranged mother and stepfather are trespassing and harassing me outside my home, I said, my voice steady. They've been asked to leave. I feel unsafe. By the time the sirens cut through the drizzle, half the street was watching. An officer stepped out, calm and professional. Mom, sir, you need to leave the premises now. My mother sputtered. She's my daughter. The officer shook his head. She's an adult, and she's made it clear you're not welcome. Leave or there will be charges. Finally, they backed away, Leonard muttering under his breath. My mother shooting me one last look, a mix of rage and something hollow. As the patrol car pulled away, the rain washed over my face, cold but cleansing. I wasn't the scared girl in the attic anymore. I was a woman standing on her own doorstep, unshaken, finally free. Sometimes closure isn't a quiet goodbye. It's a streetlight, a crowd of neighbors, and a decision to stop letting someone else write your story. That night, under the rain and flashing lights, I chose myself over the family that never chose me. The restraining order went through 2 weeks later. No more knocks, no more calls, no more ghosts on my doorstep. The first morning after it became official, I woke to sunlight pouring through my single window. It was an ordinary day. Buses rumbling on the street below, the laundromat humming. But to me, it felt like a new world. For the first time since I was 16, I could take a deep breath without bracing for the next blow. I poured my energy into my own life, and it finally began to bloom. My career grew. I moved from junior projects to leading full campaigns, then to a corner office with my name on the door. I upgraded from the studio apartment to a cozy bedroom with sunlight, a balcony, and a little garden of potted herbs I watered every morning. I surrounded myself with the family I chose: my aunt, my grandparents, friends who became siblings in everything but blood. Every Friday, I'd visit my grandparents for dinner. My grandmother would hug me a little longer than necessary, whispering, "We're so proud of you." And my grandfather would nod silently from his chair, eyes shining with a pride he didn't need words to show. I had chased my mother's approval for half my life. In the end, I didn't need it. One autumn evening, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, the city lights flickering below. The air smelled like rain and basil from the little planter by my chair. I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who walked barefoot off a porch in the dark, hard in pieces, convinced she was alone. I wanted to reach back through time and tell her, "You will survive this. You will build something beautiful. And one day, you will sit under the open sky and feel free." Family isn't blood. Family is the people who stay when the world walks out. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply this: living well, living free, and loving yourself enough to never look back. Peace doesn't arrive like a storm. It creeps in on quiet mornings, in warm cups of tea, in laughter shared with the people who truly choose you. I learned that I didn't need to fix the family that broke me to live fully. My life, my freedom, my joy, they were mine all along. Have you ever found freedom by walking away from the people who hurt you most? Share your story in the comments, and subscribe to Telling Story with Me for more powerful journeys of healing, self-love, and hard-won happiness.